All right. Hey, is it true? Is it true that the Rams may not draft who we expect them to draft? Is it true the Rams may have a surprise for us on draft day? And is it true that we have an offensive line that is deeper than most people thought? And also, the day we had to say goodbye to Wendell Tyler. I'm Joe Trosian, and this is the April 25th, 2022 edition of RamView. Thank you so much for clicking on. Thank you so much for the support. I love the reaction we got this weekend on all the people that clicked on the pick and the happy birthday notice for Greg Meisner, and it was neat because when I was tracking that down, you realize Meisner, Sean Gilbert, and of course this dude named Aaron Donald all played at Pitt. And they all started for the Rams. And of course, Meisner was a little bit of the cheaper variety. They got him in the third round, but they got 8 seasons out of him. And so it's a pretty amazing thing. But thank you for everyone that clicked on and the conversation. I have this conversation with Brett Shepard. He's a Facebook guy. I haven't met Brett, but we were talking about going back and forth just a tiny bit on Earl Campbell. And he mentioned that, his biggest memory of Earl Campbell is when Earl Campbell leveled Isiah Robertson in '78 in the Astrodome, and to me, Isiah Robertson was invincible. He was just different NFL then. You didn't utilize Isiah Robertson the way Lawrence Taylor was utilized a few years later. I'm not saying Butch Robertson was Lawrence Taylor, but he had the athleticism that if they could have used him that way, that would have been something pretty special. And so that's how my family viewed Isiah Robertson. He was a Ram at the level of Merlin Olsen, Deacon Jones, Jack Youngblood. That's the kind of level that we viewed him. And it's a shame in many ways, this perennial Pro Bowler, all pro, has really been lost to history a little bit because he finished up in Buffalo. And you know what? It wouldn't be bad for a Veterans Committee, although Isiah Robertson has passed away. It would be bad for a Veterans Committee to go back and take a look at Butch Robertson's career. What do you think? I think so. Again, I'm Joe Trosian. I've been a sports writer. I'm a writer. I'm also a pastor of a church. I've held my books up for you to see. I don't do Patreon, but I do write books, and this is Tangent Drinks, my high school football book. I've also written some exclusively Christian novels, dystopian, they're fiction, and you can find those on Amazon. Just type in Joe Tarosian and buy them all, right? Need a new pair of shoes, or at least, some dough to go to spring training next year. Anyway, thank you so much again for the support. You could follow me at JoeT13B on Twitter and on Instagram, and at joetarosian.com. Thank you again for your support. So last draft season, the talk was about the Rams taking a center or an off-ball linebacker. Every mock draft that was done, every mock draft I did, it was like, okay, who are the Rams going to take? They're going to take either, I think I was looking at Jabril Cox initially because he was a hot item early and then he faded. And then, of course, Creed Humphrey was the guy, right? Everyone knows the Creed Humphrey. And so it was either going to be an off-ball linebacker who has coverage skills, or it was going to be a center, because at this point, Brian Allen was just something we didn't want to dance with. And Austin Blythe had moved on, took less money, went to Kansas City. And, we know what happened. The Rams had an opportunity to draft Creed Humphrey. He was sitting on the board. Everyone thought it was going to be, and instead they took Tutu Atwell. Creed Humphrey went to Kansas City, and Austin Blythe ended up hardly playing all last year after he went home to Kansas City. And so, and then at 104, the Rams took Ernest Jones. And so what happened was, my phone's ringing. I should have turned off my phone. So the Rams didn't take at their first pick a center or a cornerback, right? And or I'm sorry, a center or an off-ball linebacker. And this season, as we're looking at it, every mock draft you look at, just about every mock draft, although I did hear one that I thought was kind of lazy. I don't want to slam anybody, but there are people who do this professionally all year round. And then there are people, I would put myself in the next category down, that, you work, you study, you look at it. And maybe we get proved wrong, but I just don't. Do you really see the Rams spending the 104th overall pick, a premium pick, on a punter for Matt Ariza out of San Diego State, who has a thunder leg? We get that. I understand it. But they just signed Riley Dixon for $1 million. Now, Riley Dixon is not going to be something special. But you just signed him for $1 million. Nothing's guaranteed in this league for a punter. But I just didn't see the Rams drafting a punter at 104, right? So it has to be a corner or an interior offensive lineman. That's what it has to be. That's what everyone's saying. And I share that because beforehand, we don't know what kind of trade might happen. We don't know who is going to fall in the draft, right? There's always somebody that falls. And especially as you see running backs, I'm looking at Walker from Michigan State, Brees, is it Brees Hall from Iowa State? You're looking at some of these guys. There's a strong feeling that none of these guys are going to go in the first round, right? And they might not start coming off the board till the mid-second, which means the further back that run on running backs goes, the Rams at 104 might have the opportunity, surprise, surprise, to take a running back. And now that's not on anybody's board. That's not on anything that I've seen. But you have to try to get into Les Snead's head and rummage around in there. Rams clearly needed a center going into last year, but they knew what they had in Brian Allen, and they went with it, and it paid off. They clearly needed an off-ball linebacker, and instead they put it off to 104 and got Ernest Jones, and clearly it paid off. And so it doesn't make sense maybe to take a running back at 104. You've got Cam Akers, you've got Darrell Henderson, and you just drafted Jake Funk last year, who they seem to like. But here's the issue here is that while I love Darrell Henderson, I think a lot of us love Darrell Henderson. Darrell Henderson's in his contract year. This is his last year. He doesn't necessarily look like a second contract candidate, but then again, he might get tendered an offer because running backs are so devalued now by the NFL. We know that Akers has a history of injury. And so there's an issue here in terms of quality depth. Jake Funk, to me, looks like a glorified special teamer. He's the new Chase Reynolds. Do you remember Chase? In fact, he even wears the same number. White running backs for the Rams, Jake Funk, Chase Reynolds, and Lester Josephson all seem to wear number 34. And Chase Reynolds was a really outstanding special team player for the Rams. I think our first year in LA and most of those years in St. Louis. I see that with Jake Funk. I don't know if Jake Funk's a guy that's going to get into a rotation of carries. So with Akers' history of getting a little nicked up, even Henderson's history of getting nicked up, Rams might want to add some quality depth. And if a position drops, like running back, it doesn't start going till 45, 50. The Rams might get in on that game and draft a running back, right? So since I have talked quite a bit about CBs, cornerbacks, we've done that. What about the offensive line? And again, Rams need a guard, right? They need somebody that maybe could flash to center and guard. Well, they've got the center guard combo in Coleman Shelton. And right now, PFF lists Bobby Evans as the starter at right guard. Most people believe Coleman Shelton's going to be the starter and then slide over to center if he has to. And that's something to think about. At 104, it's going to have to be somebody special that has the ability to contribute now, right? At the Ernest Jones level, at a level where they're not going to be stars, maybe become a starter mid-season, but they can contribute something. You're not expecting them to become all-stars. And by the time you get to that 104th spot, you're really in a delicate ground there because there are some names that a lot of people like, Luke Fortner from Kentucky because of Liam Cohen, the OC. There's names that we're seeing, Cole Strange, we're seeing all kinds of names, but a lot of those names have slid up on the board. And a lot of names like Kellen Deesh and Matt Waletzko, they were up on the board early, have slipped back. And some of the guys they're talking about are inside the 100, inside the top 90 as far as projected for draft. And so I really think if the Rams are going to draft an offensive lineman, he has to be somebody that can really bang out for a starting spot now. But let's look at the Rams offensive line real quick here at the 9-minute mark of who they've got across the board right now. Joseph Noteboom, they have total confidence in Noteboom, demonstrated by the contract they gave him. Ram fans should feel good because every time Noteboom's had to step in, he's been fantastic. He's ready to play. Excellent tutelage. And also we're getting that fresh body Noteboom. So unless somebody rolls up his leg or something fluke happens, this isn't a guy that's all set for shoulder and things that are accumulating injuries that might have started in 2018 when he was drafted. Instead, He's been getting spot time. He's been having an opportunity to develop. And if he is who the Rams think he is, the Rams could have their left tackle for the next 5 to 10 years. And that's just a warming thought for Ram fans. David Edwards at left guard. He's in his contract year, and he's played solid for the Rams. He's in the top third of all guards in the NFL. Brian Allen was a top 10 center. No one saw that coming. And again, that's where you didn't draft a center. Why didn't you draft a center? And Brian Allen's not as good as Creed Humphrey, but the Rams believed in him. And you know what? The Rams won a Super Bowl with Brian Allen, and they've locked him up. And of course, Austin Corbett left. And most fans, most sites are kind of elevating Bobby Evans into that right guard spot to replace Corbett. Most of the fans that are intuitive and are watching and nuanced a little bit, they're looking at Coleman Shelton because the Rams forked over dough to keep Coleman Shelton into Los Angeles. And I don't think they're going to do it just to be Brian Allen's caddy. I think the right guard spot is his to lose. And then if something happens to Allen, he can slide over. And then right tackle Rob Havenstein, who's technically got 2 years on his contract, but the second year is void. So he's a free agent after this year. And Havenstein's just been I don't want to say a revelation, but what a great right tackle he's been. He's been a fantastic tackle for the Rams. And you'd love to see them lock him up as long as he's healthy and is still ready to go. The years he's given the Rams have just been wonderful. So that's the offensive line starting. But there's 3 names I want to throw out at you that one is not so positive. 2 are hopeful that we should really keep an eye on. Bobby Evans, I believe he was taken out of Oklahoma. He was 3rd round, 97 overall. That's a premium pick for the Rams. And he's played only 23 games since 2019. He started 8, 7 of them in 2019. And they've tried twice. They tried as a rookie, and they tried in the offseason last year. If you remember last year, Austin Corbett, the talk was he was going to play center, and then Bobby Evans was going to fill in at right guard. But early on, it became apparent that wasn't going to work. Evans went to the bench, only played a handful of games this year. And, of course, the Rams' offensive line was solid this year, even above solid. And, of course, Brian Allen had the year. Austin Corbett was top 3rd of all starting guards in the NFL. Now he's gone his own way. Was it Carolina? Jacksonville? I get him confused. Whatever. East Coast. There we go. And right now it's Bobby Evans' time. This is his contract year. I think the Rams have tried to give him every opportunity to make the team, to be a starter, to be a contributor. He's got the frame. He's got the build. They originally tried him at tackle. It didn't work. They've tried him at guard, and they're waiting for it to work. And I think he will be given an opportunity. But outside of just keeping him around because he's in his 4th year and just seeing if something amazing can happen and that he knows the system, I don't see him becoming a starter. I think he's had his shot. And unfortunately, 3rd round, 97th overall, unfortunately, that's a rare miss for the Rams. One of the players that stepped in last year, undrafted out of Iowa, okay, everyone says Iowa and everyone says amen, hallelujah, because Iowa, Wisconsin, this is the place you go when you need those big farm boys. And Alaric Jackson is one of them. He was an undrafted player and signed with the Rams. And he played 4 games for the Rams. In fact, he played a couple games with COVID and everything that kind of ravaged the Rams midseason. And he handled his business really well. And so the Rams do like Alaric Jackson. And as far as adding depth, maybe he's not ready to start. But if Noteboom should go down, if Havenstein, who's been extremely healthy throughout his career, goes down now as he enters, I think, year 7, year 8, year 9. He was a 2015 pick. 2015? I think so. And as he enters that phase of his career, his 8th year, the Rams do like Alaric Jackson. They thought enough of him untested to put him in the lineup last year, and he played well. And then there's another guy that I think you should keep an eye on. He's got the more of a build for a guard, although he came in as a tackle. It's Tremaine Ankrum Jr. He played about 12 games in 2020, but he didn't play any last year. He got put on injured reserve, and he was a 7th round pick, 250 overall. And the fact that he was drafted 250 overall, but the Rams have kept him on the roster. They've even given him some playing time. They've invested in him. Now, he's out of Clemson. And of course, Clemson with Dabo Sweeney, and that environment there at Clemson, it's high character climate. And so not only do you see a guy that's physically gifted enough to play professional football, but you also see a guy the Rams probably likely because of his character have invested in. And so I would expect him to be first go in terms of back. Maybe he competes for a starting spot. There were times Edwards looked shaky, a few times. Coleman Shelton hasn't been a starter really before in the NFL, although I think the Rams believe he will be. But either way, I think this is a year for Ankrum going into his third season. This is a chance for him to prove himself, along with Alaric Jackson. And of course, I think it's do or die for Bobby Evans. And so I wanted to get that out there as a reason the Rams may not at 104. I'm not saying they're not going to draft an offensive lineman, and I'm not saying they're not going to draft a corner, but some of the corners the Rams need, they need someone who can play that zone. And when someone plays the Rams type of zone, he doesn't have to be uberly athletic. He has to just have the presence of the spacing of playing the zone. And sometimes those are the guys that play more with their smarts than their athleticism. And it's a reason why some of those guys who would it be? Damari Mathis, I think it is. Kobe Bryant, that's the one from Cincy. Yeah, his name, Kobe Bryant. Why he looks like he might be a good scheme fit for the Rams, but someone like Zion McCollum out of Sam Houston State is a more athletic guy. But I think they drafted their athletic guy last year in Robert Rochelle. But that doesn't mean that the Rams won't draft a corner or a safety. It doesn't mean they won't draft some of those guys. But I think I think the expectation of it is we got to read the room. And I think the Rams could go running back. And the offensive line is more set than I think some people want to believe, because we know the Rams' history of sticking with players and developing them. So there you go. That's that. I kind of wanted to hit on a couple of things here in Ram history. And here we go. On this date in 1983, this was a hard day. We knew when the Rams drafted Eric Dickerson that Wendell Tyler's days were numbered. Wendell Tyler, really, along with Harold Jackson and some of the others, really one of my favorite Rams of all time. I loved his style. He was the first home run hitter I saw play for the Rams that can go 0 to 60. He's on the cover of Inside Sports one year, called Life in the Fast Lane. Wendell Tyler, I actually met him. I was working for a paper, and he was watching his son play a Little League game, and I was there covering it, and I spotted him, and I asked for a picture, and he posed with me. We posed together, and I think I've posted it on my website. Maybe I'll do it again. I'm not going to say Wendell and I are tight, but I thought it was really cool, and he was a gracious dude. But he was one of my favorite players, and on this day, he was traded to the San Francisco 49ers along with Cody Jones. Now, people forget about Cody Jones. Cody Jones was drafted 5th round by the Rams in 73, went to a Pro Bowl in 78. He kept first-rounder Mike Fanning on the bench after Werlin Olsen retired. He started inside alongside Larry Brooks, and tore his Achilles, missed the 79 season, missed the Super Bowl season, and then following the 82 season, his 10th year with the Rams, he was moved with Wendell Tyler and a 3rd-round draft pick to the San Francisco 49ers. That 3rd-round draft pick became UCLA linebacker Blanchard Montgomery. Nice Rose Bowl that year. And the Rams got a 2nd and a 4th. I think it was a 6th. I think it was a 3rd-rounder they spent on Wendell Tyler. They got 6 seasons out of him. And then they dealt him for a 2nd-round pick, number 36 overall. And that 36th overall pick was Mike Wilcher. And I think I've talked about Mike Wilcher. Mike Wilcher was a really nice outside linebacker for the Rams all throughout the 80s. Had 12.5 sacks in his breakout year. I think it was in 85. Squandered the 4th-round pick in 83. I don't know if they weren't believing in Mike Lansford, but they spent it on number 87 overall on Chuck Nelson, Washington kicker, really good college kicker, but didn't have the boot to make it in the NFL. So that was a trade that kind of broke my heart. I was really happy to see Wendell Tyler go to a Pro Bowl, really happy to see Wendell Tyler win a Super Bowl with the 49ers. Had another 1,000-yard season there. Great player, really overlooked how great Wendell Tyler was, and all the best in memories of Cody Jones. But on the same date, 10 years later, the Rams made that deal, that Wendell Tyler deal, on April 25th, 1983. On April 25th, 1993, they drafted the bust, 10th overall. They drafted Jerome Bettis. And it was a shame that he was squandered in those dark years, but he went on to have a great career. So even though the Rams dealt him, you could hardly say that was a whiff. Unlike the third and fifth round, they sent to the Kansas City Chiefs in 2007 for Dante Hall, and they whiffed on so Chiefs whiffed on both of those picks, but the Rams took Dante Hall. Remember Dante Hall? For about 3 years there, he was the most devastating punt returner, kick returner in the NFL. I think overall he had 6 kickoff returns, 6 punt returns. Wasn't exactly Devin Hester, but Dante Hall was terrific, just not with the Rams. And although he did return 1 punt for a touchdown, after 2008, he was done. He had 2007, 2008 for the Rams, Dante Hall. On this date in 2009, the Rams whiffed with the 2nd overall pick. We bag on Greg Robinson a lot, 2nd overall in 2014. The Rams drafted Jason Smith out of Baylor, 2nd overall in 2009, and he was a big whiff. I mean, he missed big time, and that really set the franchise back. But in the 2009 draft on the same day, they drafted James Laurinaitis, number 35. And James Laurinaitis was wonderful. He started 7 seasons for the Rams, played in 112 games, never missed a game, and he started all 112 games at middle linebacker. And if he had come out in 2008 instead of 2009, likely he would have been a top 10 pick, and that might have been too high for him. But he stayed that extra year at Ohio State, and I think he was one of those guys that got, sometimes you stay too long one place, they stop looking at what you do, and they start noticing all the little things you can't do. And he dropped from inside the top 10. I remember this specifically in 2008, where he would have been taken to number 35 in 2009. And Billy Devaney, the Rams GM at the time, took him. Great pick. I remember Rams fans thought with that pick, they were going to take Ray Maluga out of USC. He was that heavy-hitting Samoan dude for USC, really laid some huge hits while he was playing for the Trojans. And instead, they took Laurinaitis at 35, and Maluga went to the Cincinnati Bengals, had a distinguished career there at number 38. Although I think Laurinaitis was more productive. The tragedy for James Laurinaitis is he was with the Rams 2009 through 2015, and those were the years the Rams absolutely wasted players like him and Chris Long through all that darkness that was Spagnuolo and Jeff Fisher. And he wasn't re-signed after the 2015 season, spent 2016 in New Orleans, and then his career was over. I think currently he works for the Big Ten Network. That's the last I heard. On this date in 2013, the Rams whiffed again. Not a good draft day for the Rams. They drafted Tavon Austin, number 8. Okay, enough said. All right. That same draft, this was a Les Snead draft. They had the 30th overall as well. First round, they took Alec Ogletree. Now, Ogletree had a nice career. I think he was better suited for outside linebacker, and he's still playing in the NFL. Good for Tree. Was he a breakout? No. Would I call him a bust at number 30? No, I wouldn't call him a bust. Austin was the bust. And then on this day, finally, as we wrap this up at the 23-minute mark, the Rams sent the number 126 overall pick in the 4th round, I believe it was, to Houston. And because Houston wanted to move up from 136 to 126 because they liked this offensive lineman named Charlie Heck, who finally became a starter last year. And the Rams got back the 136th pick, the 248th pick, and the 250th pick. And I thought this was interesting. And it looked like up until Super Bowl Sunday that maybe that trade was a bust. It's not a big deal to trade 126 to 136. But with pick number 136, the Rams drafted Bryson Hopkins, tight end out of Purdue, who fell on the depth chart, thought it was a whiff, and then he makes 4 critical catches in the Super Bowl. So the Rams win that trade. If Bryson Hopkins never plays again for the Rams, if he gets cut this offseason, moves on, decides he's had enough of NFL, that pick worked for the Rams at number 136 as Bryson Hopkins had a heck of a Super Bowl. The Rams whiffed at 248. They missed out. They drafted Sam Sloman. Farewell, adieu, adios, Sam. But at number 50, the guy of the day, Tremaine Ankrum. They drafted at 250, and what pick they received from the Houston Texans, they drafted Tremaine Ankrum. And Ankrum, I believe, can and will be a positive contributor this year. 6'2", 315 out of Clemson. And think about that. Just to move up 10 spots, the Rams got Hopkins, but they also picked up a couple throwaway 7th-round picks. That 7th-round pick was Tremaine Ankrum. Don't get all uptight about those late 6th and 7th round picks. Jordan Fuller was drafted in the 6th round. Nick Scott was drafted in the 7th round. Ben Skoranek, who frustrates everybody because of the some of the tip balls he had in the Super Bowl, and he's not necessarily a hands man. Ben Skoranek's blocking and everything, he contributed in the Super Bowl as a 7th round pick. And so if he never plays another down for the Rams got clicks out of that slot. And so I just like to throw those things out there. But don't be surprised. I'm not saying they will, but everyone expected a center or an off-ball linebacker last year. Everyone's expecting a corner and an inside linebacker or an inside interior offensive lineman this year. And everyone's expecting that. And of course, it is the Rams. They drafted a wide receiver last year. They very well could draft a running back. All right. Hey, I'm Joe Tarosian. Thank you so much for clicking on. And we're going to get the podcast loaded up here after a little bit. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, please do. And we'd just love to build our imprint there so you could hear us. You don't have to see my face. And it's okay not to see my face. I'm happy when I don't have to see my face. Okay, folks. God bless. Take care. Be sure to like. Be sure to subscribe. Hey, leave questions. I love to yak. Take care. Bye-bye.